I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is Subtle Shifts, the podcast where you'll learn how to transform your life from the inside out, one small, meaningful shift at a time. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so glad you're here. This episode is going to be a little bit different than episodes I have shared with you in the past for a number of reasons. I am really leaning into being more authentic and honest about my life experience and also my intuition and my internal guidance on what I am feeling called to share here on the podcast with you. So I'm going to be talking about something today that I don't talk about a lot, or that I haven't talked about a lot in the past. And to be completely transparent with you, it is because I've had a lot of fear around it, specifically fear of judgment. What will people think? And fear of scaring people off, fear of self-isolation, fear of the unknown, really is the bottom line of it. And I've done a lot of work recently around resolving that fear and doing what it takes to walk through the fear, because what I want on the other side is to be completely authentic. And of course, as you all know, I am here to share my perspective. And when I really did question, like, is this something I want to talk about? Is this something I want to share? Is this the right thing? My goal here is to share my perspective on things. And I know when I am connecting with someone, or I'm listening to a podcast, or looking for inspiration, the people who share authentically their experience and their stories without holding back and are completely honest, those are the people I trust the most. And to be a trusted person, I also need to trust in you. This is an episode for you if you're listening and you feel this in the pit of your belly, like, I'm kind of excited to hear what she has to say about these things, or I'm curious to hear what she has to say about these things. If you're here, this is for you. And listen with curiosity, run it through your filters as with everything I say, and let your own intuition guide you as to what's right for you next step. And I would also just love to invite you to leave a comment or find me on Instagram to let me know that you listened to this episode, because the more we share our own personal experiences and allow ourselves to be seen, the more connected we feel. And this has been true with me my whole life. The more vulnerable I can get with people, whether it be through social media or just one-on-one conversations, the more connected I feel. And it's so easy to feel isolated in our everyday lives. And if you are connecting with this message that I share in this episode, leave a comment. Let me know. Reach out to me. Send me a message. Send me an email. I would love to hear from you. So this conversation I'm going to be having with you is, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 signs that you are having a spiritual awakening. Even just saying that, there's like nerves, because I'm like, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, what is she's losing it. What's she talking about? This is crazy. That's the old narrative that I've really been working on, challenging myself to push through. And I'm just going to share these 7 things with you, and also share some of my own personal experiences with them. So let me just give you a little bit of background before I get into the 7 things to help you understand where I am coming from. So as you know, if you've been on this podcast for a while, I used to be a school teacher. I taught elementary school for a really long time in many different capacities. I love to teach. I love children, and I've always been drawn to that. And around 2015, 2016, I left the classroom to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. And really what that provided for me, it just opened the door for me to start exploring what's next for me, or who I am and what I want. I had a little more time freedom, because at the time my kids were in school all day and I had a lot of open time in my schedule. So I started to get curious about what it is that I'm here for, or what is it I want to do. And I had a long time yoga practice, so I really leaned into my yoga practice. I had a little more time with that, and the opportunity to become a yoga teacher training, to do yoga teacher training came up, and it just felt right to me, and I did it. That is one of the first turning points for me, where I was really given the opportunity to learn so much more than I had understood about life and people and connections and purpose than I had ever experienced before. So that was around 2015. And after that, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to go back to the classroom. This doesn't feel right for me. I'm really ready to explore diving more into yoga, teaching yoga, meditation, and integrating that more into my own personal life. So fast forward a year or so, I started to, this is probably when I could say my awakening happened. There was no definitive moment where I was like, oh my gosh, the world just exploded. And I'm like, I am awakened. It wasn't like that. It was more just like a general awareness that started to come to me. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. Oh, that was more the sense of it. And at the same time, I started aligning myself with other people going through the same thing. And this wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, I really want to find other people who are doing this. It was more like we kind of like connected and we were all going through it at the same time. So it was great to have community and to talk about these things, like noticing synchronicities and things like that. All of that started happening, and just general awarenesses. And at the same time, I started to think, well, gosh, okay, so I'll tell you one thing that happened is I had this dream that I was in a car with my friend, one of these friends in this group that I was talking about. And she looked at me and she said, what is it you really want for yourself? And I remember that dream. And the next night, she and I went to an event together, like a yoga event or like a sound bath thing. And on the way home, she looked at me and she said, well, what is it you really want for yourself? The same person, same thing as my dream. And I was like, whoa, something is going on here. And those types of things kept happening over and over and over. And I started leaning into it. I wasn't afraid of it. I was really curious. I'm like, well, what is going on here? And I started diving into things that I had never even known of before, like oracle cards and getting readings and going to learn about chakras and balancing chakras and how to connect with spirit guides. I started to really learn a lot about that. So that was around 2016. I think that was happening. And back to the whole, like, what is a spiritual awakening and signs you're having a spiritual awakening. I'll get to the signs that I want to share with you, but I'm telling you my story because all of the things I'm going to share with you are sprinkled throughout my story. So I would like to say for me, there was a spiritual awakening and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. Oh, this is where I'm supposed to go. It wasn't really like that. And I would venture to say that for most people who have gone through something like this, it's not a linear path. It's more like an awareness that happens and then you integrate it. And then you have another awareness and then you integrate it. And there are also times, I know for me, where I was closed off and I was just like, you know what, that's just woo-woo bullshit. I don't know what I was into. That was weird. I don't have time for that. I need to buckle down and really focus on XYZ or be where I am now. And what I am assessing that period was, it was also the same time where we were going through a lot of really hard challenges with my daughter, who was going through severe mental health challenges. I was very much in survival mode and what I can, I guess, refer to as the dark night of the soul. I might do a podcast on that too, but that's part of an awakening journey too. Like you get this call, then you go through a dark night of the soul. So I was kind of closed off or just really doubtful about like, is this really happening? I don't have time for this. I just need to survive in the everyday moments. And even then, even when my daughter was in a residential facility, like a overnight hold, when I was home, just like at the lowest of the low, one of those same friends who was in the circle that I told you about came to my house to give me some flowers. And it wasn't even because she knew what was going on. She didn't. And I hadn't even told her. But she showed up and she gave me these flowers. And I told her about it. And she was like, oh my gosh. And so we're standing at the door just talking. And my phone was upstairs on a ledge or like on a shelf. And all of a sudden it started like bing, bing, bing. Like I was getting a bunch of texts, one after the other after the other. And normally I would have heard a text, and if I'm talking to my friends, I would have just ignored it. But it kept going off. I'm like, oh no, there might be something going on. So I went upstairs real quick. And the moment I picked up my phone, it said 444. It was 444. And all of the texts that were coming through were not from one person. They were from a bunch of different people. And it was like they had all been stored up and came through all at once. That is just one of so many experiences that I could share. But even in those moments when I was resisting, I was still getting signs. And I was still open to them, but just not actively seeking them. So then through that experience, it kind of carried me through like learning about manifesting. And that's when we moved and being pulled in and out of this awareness of universal connection, universal energy, connection with source, connection with spirit guides, higher self, all of those things. Then when I started my business, and that was in 2019, same time I left my teaching career for good, and we also moved. That was kind of like another level of my spiritual awakening, because I learned so much about myself at that time, because I was doing something so new and so different and so far out of my comfort zone that leaning into the spiritual side of things really helped. And that for me included like self-trust, connecting with my guides and asking for signs and signals. Is this the right path? Am I doing the right thing? I was always looking for confirmation, and I was always receiving it. So at the time, as you know, I started coaching teenagers. And what's really interesting about it is I was talking so much to, when I was marketing, to the parent and how I could help their teen. I was never talking about anything more than your teen is struggling with either their mental health or staying on top of schoolwork. Like, your teen is struggling, I can help them. But what was so fascinating to me was the teens that were coming to me, the parents who were coming to me, and the teens that ultimately ended up working with me. I knew that they were born awakened. And they were born with like a soul purpose. And I'm going to get into soul purpose probably on a future episode as well. But I would know the moment that they came on my screen, oh, okay. They already have the awareness that I was not born with, that I learned through my integration, through my awakening. They have already been here before. They are an old soul coming back, and they are struggling in this 3D reality, because being a human right now is really fucking hard, and especially being a teenager. And so when we get in these conversations, I would never talk about things like astrology or crystals or anything like that. They would bring it up. They would be the ones saying, I just feel like I don't belong. And it wasn't like a typical, like, just teen, I don't have any friends, what was me? It was more like the way they would explain it is like, I'm different and I know it. But they didn't quite understand it. And so many of the teens that came to me were like this. And at the time I was like, you know what? It's not the teens who need help. Yes, they do, but they do have a path. What they really need is a good support system. And that's when I started coaching parents. Again, not talking to the parents about, you have an enlightened soul being under your roof, and here's some tools to help you support them. I never talked about that. I might have talked a little bit about the spirituality side of it, but it really was like kept under wraps because I didn't want to freak people out. Again, the parents who came to me had those same teenagers. And I was giving them the tools to help support their teenagers. So it was like, even though I wasn't putting it out there verbally, the energetics or whatever was being picked up, and the people were coming to me. So fast forward, as you know, I rebranded my podcast in February of this year, and I started talking about women in midlife. And again, something I can deeply resonate with. But what I found was that the women who have been coming to me, yes, they're coming to me because they're in midlife and they're, wondering what's next. But there is also this like deep inner curiosity of like, what is next for me? I know there's something next for me. And when I talk about it in the subtle shifts method, that's the call phase. They're in the call phase. They're like, I know that there's something better, something more, something deeper. Most of them are already pretty spiritually aware, connected, maybe practice yoga, meditation. And I also work with men. I know I don't talk about men clients on here very often, but I have men clients as well. And what I found is instead of like really what I've been talking about is like, here's who I help. But the truth is, bottom line, I help people who are in the call phase. They know there's something more for them and they don't know what it is. They may feel spiritually connected and curious, but they're still not really sure what's going on. They may fear away from it, like lean back, because they're afraid of judgment, just like I was, and they don't know how to share it. They don't know what to do. And I also have people in my life who have come to me and said, you are the only person that I can talk to about these things because my family would never understand. My family would think I'm crazy. And whether they grew up in a religious home where they might be shunned or, turned away from because they're opening up to spiritual gifts or collective consciousness or awarenesses, but they come to me and they're like, you're the only person that I can actually talk to about these things. And so we have some really great, deep conversations. And all of this is happening under the surface because my exterior persona, the business owner, needs to feel safe. And so I haven't really talked about it too much on here. Again, because of fear. But I know there are so many of you out there who are nodding your head and you're just like, yeah, okay, I'm meant to hear this. And it's refreshing to have somebody talk about it. And so that's why I'm sharing it with you. So if you are hearing this, know that it's for a reason. You are here to open the door to your spiritual curiosities. And it is safe for you to feel the excitement when you are getting those intuitive hits, or maybe when you are connecting with spirit guides. It's exciting for a reason. It's like your soul is waking up. And there's so much to explore in it. And the connections you make along the way, it is really so fun. I recently did a deep dive with a spirit worker, I guess energy worker, I guess you could call her. She's got many, many different modalities that she uses, but we were defining my business values. And for me, my number one business value is fun. I want to have fun. And that is also what I'm talking about here. When I'm talking about awakening, it doesn't have to feel heavy. It doesn't have to feel like, oh my gosh, like the world is falling apart. It might, but it's a roller coaster. And when you think about when you're going on that roller coaster ride and you're going down, your stomach is dropping and you're screaming your head off, there's also a lot of excitement there. So it's like fear and excitement at the same time. But if you lean into the excitement and the fun of it, it really can enhance your quality of life to a level that you never even imagined. So without further ado, I am going to share with you the 7 signs you are having a spiritual awakening. Number 1 is you have a really strong desire for authenticity. So you are just tired of the bullshit. You're tired of the small talk. You're tired of the fake crap. And like even scrolling social media, you don't have time for people who are curating their lives and trying to make it look like things are so fucking amazing. You know they're not. Like nobody's life is that great. You just don't have time for fake anymore. And it's hard for you to even be around people who you perceive to be fake or inauthentic. So as a result, you might be distancing yourself from those old relationships or even those old patterns and routines and things that used to really matter to you. They kind of don't anymore. It's just not resonating anymore. Number 2 is you have a stronger intuition. So you're really noticing your gut feelings or intuitive nudges. They're stronger and they're also more accurate. And maybe you're making some more decisions that are based on instinct versus like rational thought or logicking your way through things. So you just have these intuitive hits sometimes just out of nowhere. The third one is that you're just starting to question everything. You start to question, like, what's the point of this? Like, where's this belief come from? Where did I get this idea of what success is? Questioning religion, relationships, questioning your purpose. It's like there's this really deep desire to understand why and to really understand what else so that you can really figure out what's right for you. Like someone says something and instead of taking it at face value, you might be like, I'm not really sure about that. I don't really know if that resonates. And you just start to kind of question it all. Number 4 is you have a stronger connection with nature and energy in general than you did before. So being in nature, it feels even more healing. It feels even more grounding than maybe it did before. And you might also start noticing energy in people. So like you're in a room with someone and maybe they're not even saying anything, but you can sense what's going on with them, whether that's the story that's going on with them or just an energy or an emotion that's being emitted off of them. I started noticing this when I was teaching yoga at the end when I would do hands-on assists. When the students in my class were in Shavasana, I would do a hands-on assist, like putting my hands like on their shoulders and softening their shoulders down. And if I would allow myself to, I would be able to pick up on their energy. And sometimes I would get like a clear story of what's going on with them. Sometimes it would just be like an energy of emotion that would come to me. And I would always do this like with an intention, and it would never just be to pry, like, I want to know what's going on with this person. Sometimes it would just come through and I'd be like, you know what, this is their energy to keep. I'm going to go ahead and let them keep this energy and have that in this space. But you start to notice that, right? You just start to notice things you didn't notice before. And you might also feel a little more drawn to do things like meditation or mindfulness or, again, being in nature a little bit more. Number 5 is you have an increased sensitivity in general, and there's more emotional release. So this is when old wounds might surface, fears might surface, emotions, and they're rising to the surface for healing. And it might also feel really intense. It's like you are on a more intense high and low emotional journey. I like to think that it's weird because when I look back at my experiences before I started to awaken, it's like the color isn't as vivid. It just feels more structured and rigid. And then afterward, it's like the highs and lows were so much more intense. And I was just like, why do things feel so hard? But why do they also feel so amazing at the same time? It's like the roller coaster just got higher and lower. And also, like I said, things being brought to the surface for healing. There were things that came to my awareness and I was like, okay. And this is when I started working with a therapist and healing old wounds, healing old experiences. That is an essential part of going through this process, finding someone that you feel safe to talk to about these things. I also did this with a coach. It's like things will be brought into your awareness that maybe you haven't thought about for a while, or awarenesses of like how something is impacting you instead of shoving it down, which is something you might have done before. You're a little more willing to look at it and to feel it so that you can heal it. So just feeling more sensitive and also having a little more emotional release. Number 6 is you're attracted to new perspective. So you might be reading books that you never even knew existed before, or listening to podcasts, maybe it's this one, to learn things that you haven't really heard of before, or like learn more about something that you're interested in. Just different perspectives and new insights into spirituality, consciousness, and self-development in general. Around the time when I started to awaken, I started reading so many books, and I had never really been interested in self-development in the past. I was like, oh, that's just for people who are lost souls or having problems in their life. I don't need that. But once I realized like what's out there, it was like I couldn't get enough. And so you might be called to or drawn to new things that you didn't even know that were for you before. And you might spend more time journaling, practicing yoga, doing breath work, or going to energy healing sessions. They might feel a little more intriguing to you or interesting to you. And number 7, my very, very favorite one, is that you start noticing signs or synchronicities. So maybe seeing repeated numbers or kind of weird, meaningful coincidences, symbolic events that feel like messages from the universe. And I think I'll probably do a whole extra podcast on synchronicities and signs because it's so fun. And remember I said fun is like one of my top priorities. It's so fun to just send a message out there and be like, hey, you know what? I need a little reassurance. Can you give me some reassurance? Or can you send me this sign? Something like that. And then lo and behold, it comes. And it's like a little wink from the universe. And I love it. And it may not be like XYZ so straightforward. You need to do this, that, and the other. It's more just like, hey, you're not alone in this. So just to speak to something that happened to me earlier or last week, I was in meditation and I was sending a message to my guides. I'm like, I really need a sign. And I came up with a feather. I'd like to see a feather. That's something that a lot of people see when they're looking for signs. And I'm like, okay, I would like to be able to see a feather. And then my husband, who I like to call Random Task, because just out of the blue, he'll find a task that he wants to do and he'll just like do it. Just out of nowhere. It's nothing we were talking about. It just is done. And he decided he wanted to take off all of the couch cushions and wash them, which thank goodness because they needed them. But our couch has a lot of feathers in it. And so when he took the covers off, there were literally thousands of feathers all around our living room floor, everywhere. And I walked up and I was like, okay, I mean, I just asked for one feather, but I guess we can have thousands. I see you. Thank you. Thank you, universe, for this wonderful sign. So that's number 7, looking for synchronicities and seeing signs that you are on the right path. So there you have it, 7 signs that you are having a spiritual awakening. And I just want to say thank you for listening to this and know that if these things are happening to you, congratulations. Like, welcome to this next phase of your life. It is fun. It is wondrous. It is hard. It is amazing. There's a lot of doubt and question. But the one thing that I can tell you 100% from my perspective is the moment you open yourself up to it is the moment that you start receiving so much abundance in your life. What you attract, what you want, and what you want to receive starts to come to you. And it's amazing. So thank you so much for listening to my story. Again, please leave a comment or share with me on Instagram. Send me an email. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear anything in this episode that resonated with you. Whether you're seeing synchronicities, what you're seeing, I would love to hear who you're connecting with, books you're reading. Let's have a community and we can all support each other through this. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me. If you're ready to take the next step in transforming your life, Be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you today, I'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts, tag me on social media, or leave a review to help others find the podcast. Remember, the smallest shifts can create the biggest transformations. I look forward to hearing from you.